off against Cabochard is compared to when he was in Gambit with Diamond Prox and he had his little doggy to just play with lane with him, then that was scary and probably the hardest part. But I think now him and Djoko are and not as annoying as he used to be with Diamond Prox, so I think it's not going to be an issue against Vitality.
To build up that rage bar, Kobe flashes forward, gets a couple autos before the Pillar of Ice zones him away. Odo comes out of Hourglass and Wander's taken down. Jankos is going low and Kobe is running for his life. H2K have won! Oh, the Pillar of Ice and Kobe is roasted alive by H2K!
You want me to be a bad boy?
Welcome to Berlin for a new day in the EU LCS. It's a tight race in Group B, and all 3 playoff spots can be locked tonight when H2K goes up against Vitality. Earlier today, we saw some fantastic sights from the teams, and of course, an especially active crowd. We have pleasure to have everyone out in the studio tonight. We can see Crawley, humorous as ever. Odo doing his best Cabo impression with the shoes on the desk. A friendly Jankos, and a rather serious team moment between top lane and coach. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Drakos, joined at the desk today by Andrew Vedius. Day, welcome, sir. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a pleasure to be here with a fine gentleman such as yourself.
All right. Normally we meet each other. This is a surprisingly friendly start to the day.
We are professionals.
Oh,
there, Mr.
all right.
Drakos.
Well, we're professionals, so we'll just get right into it. Well, yesterday, both G2 and Splyce came up with dominant performances as they took down Misfits and Mysterious Monkeys, respectively. Now, as you look at the standings, one thing to keep in mind is that all of Group B playoffs can be locked today. H2K, of course, have already secured a spot for both Unicorns of Love and Splyce can be secured with an H2K victory.
And you can see G2 doing their best to catch up to Fnatic in today's series will be very integral as to whether or not they can actually close that gap, and if they are contention taking first in Group A.
Yeah, curious, too, to see exactly what it's going to stack up at the top 3, because Vitality, yes, it's an interesting matchup. I don't want to count them out 100% yes. It feels like Group A, it's pretty clear who's going to be there. There are some clear chances, but Group B on the opposite side,
seeding's a big thing. You don't know who's going to take that second seat, who's going to avoid G2.
I think that's the biggest thing, right? You're just like,
right?
All right, is G2 finishing second or third? Because if they finish second, we want to be third.
Exactly.
It's an incredibly complicated scenario. However, taking away from standings for this week, we have a brand new tool, when you take into account measuring damage dealt, and Pyra is here to tell you all about it.
Hello, students of statistics. In today's lecture, we're going to introduce a new stat called damage rating, which is going to show us how effective a player is at dealing damage. Now, you might be wondering, don't we already have ways to show damage dealt? For example, damage per minute and stuff like that. But DPM doesn't take into account some really key things. One, a player's champion pool. What if a player just simply isn't picking damage dealing champions? Two, their win and loss record. Of course, you're going to do more damage if you win the game. And their damage opportunities, which simply put is whenever a player is within range to do that damage. Now, when we account for damage opportunities, we like to use a statistic called adjusted damage per minute. We get adjusted DPM by dividing the total amount of damage dealt by the total time a player is within range to do damage over the course of the entire game. This helps us better show when a player is efficient at dealing damage. So now that we've established why we need a better damage stat, let's break down a big example. No, I mean literally a big example. Last week, the Mysterious Monkeys tried their best to avoid ending up as dinner for the ravenous Visit Chachi in Game 1. The Hungarian top laner's Cho'Gath looked large enough to actually eat the world. But how much damage was he actually dishing out as he dined on the Monkeys? Well, let's take a look. We took all the victorious top lane Cho'Gaths from around the world over the last 10 weeks, and we found that the average adjusted damage per minute was 850. Chachi dealt a whopping 1,566. That means that he dealt 84% more than the average top lane Cho'Gath. And that is our damage rating. This just goes to show that for the Mysterious Monkeys, Visit Chachi truly was the terror of the Void. This should help you to understand what we mean truly when we say tons of damage. Now, I hope you've been writing this down because it will be on the final exam. But for now, class is dismissed.
Thank you, Pyra. Happy to have a new statistic to measure performance. Damage per minute was fun, but a little tired of seeing Varus always topping the charts when he was a mid laner, so better now to have something a little bit more accurate. Well, we'll check out the damage rating of Fnatic and Roccat later tonight when they face off in our second series, and I think that one, I'm excited because Roccat, they're the surprise team.
Man. They took down UOL, they took down Fnatic, they lose to NIP. You never know what you're going to get with this team.
Definitely is the case. Well, in our first series of the day, the fate of Group B can decided. Now, if H2K win today, all top 3 teams will lock playoffs. This is essentially a result of Vitality not able to catch them anymore.
Yeah, Vitality right now, they are sitting at a 4-6 record. If they lose, they will be 4-7, which means that it becomes impossible with the number of games left for them to catch up. So definitely a little bit more difficult. It's a very important series for Vitality. You can see how on-screen motivated Djoko is, the stare in his eyes, very much about securing a win today.
Definitely, but it's going to be a tough road going up against H2K. We look at all of Vitality's performances over the course of this year against H2K. H2K is 6-2 over them. This feels like an incredibly H2K favored matchup.
And when you look at their performance against Splice last week, it becomes even scarier because H2K, they looked dominant. They team fought extremely well, they played side lanes extremely well, and it just seemed like H2K looked like the team that everyone expected them to be. One of the star players that I personally felt like was Chei. His use of the pillars, his ability to just lock Kobbe out of so many fights was impressive to see. And he brought out this Trundle, which we've heard rumors about. We've seen it slowly making its way into the meta. And I think that it can be a very big pick for him and H2K moving into today's series.
Yeah, and good to see some of those members where we always have question marks. Chei and Nuclear, not always 100%. Jankos, sometimes questionable performances, even if he is a star player. Good to see them iron that out. And for Chei, especially to show these kind of monster performances, even on something like a Trundle, where only tool you have to start fights is a pillar, but hitting it so consistently is fantastic. Now, Vitality, on the other hand, they had a similarly dominant win against Mysterious Monkeys. We can't take that away from them, but I feel like beating the Mysterious Monkeys is not enough to instill confidence in me that this team can take down H2K.
Yeah, it's very difficult because it's definitely on the right track. It's definitely what you needed to do with playoffs in mind and the ability to still try and qualify. But something that we did see a lot of was something that we've seen a lot from Vitality, which is their fundamentals are improving, but they still seem a little slow to make that big game-changing play. They don't seem to have that leader, that shot caller, that makes that clutch decision that wins them games. And I feel like right now that's the big thing that separates them from the other top 3 teams in Group B. And I'm hoping that if the team stays together and they continue to work on this issue, they can eventually find that voice that can lead them into these big plays. But for the time being, I think because they lack that, the fundamentals will not be enough to defeat the powerhouse of H2K.
Well, we're going to have to see. We'll see if Vitality can stay in the fight for a playoff spot. Here are Pyra and Stress to get us into game.
Thank you very much, Drakos. And hello, all you esports fans. We are about ready to hit the rip, but first, let's go ahead and not waste any time. Stress, let us check out our starting lineups. H2K is going to be starting on the blue side for game number 1. Now, there definitely are a lot of players that can stand out on this team, but I feel like, for me, I'm kind of looking at Odo to be the X factor.
Yeah, Odo, some big, strong words at the beginning of the day. He shot towards Cabochard and his former jungler a long time ago of Diamond Proc. So we have to now take a look across the other side of the rift at Odoamne's opposite number 4, Vitality on the red side. It is, of course, Cabochard in that top lane. And I feel like the whole Diamond Procs being Cabochard's little dog visiting topside is maybe a little harsher than Odoamne normally throws out. I think maybe that was poked out of him a little bit, but yeah. I think it is fair to say that Cabochard doesn't get as much attention now as he used to do.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not just about Diamond Procs, but in general, Cabochard was a player that once upon a time was thriving with a lot of pressure on his side. Remember, he pioneered some of those more unconventional top picks. Remember when he pulled out the Lucian? I mean, this guy had a streak, and it was very impressive, but we just haven't seen it for a while.
Yeah, we haven't, and part of that is to do with the visitation of a jungler up to the top side.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, camping, however you want to call it. Part of it also, I feel, is Cabochard has had a lot stiffer competition these days than previous. You look at the likes of an Odoamne, a Vizicachi, Expect even slotting into the top lane since Kikis was a top laner on G2 for a while, a long time back. I think the competition top lane has been very stiff, and Cabochard hasn't necessarily stepped up alongside it. But we know he's got the potential, and one champion, I have my eyes on Cabochard as an outside chance. He's been solo queue playing Urgot. I don't think it'll get picked, but if one guy is going to pick it. We're on 7:15. It could be Cabochard.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him, but we'll see if it ends up shaking out. We're into picks and bans. LeBlanc, Elise off the board, and there is that Cho'Gath going away. And no surprises there to kick things off. Now, Vitality is going to be a very tense game, tense series all the way through for this team as they are trying to still eke their way into playoffs and see what they remove. The Braum follows through.
I like the Braum ban because Trundle's been a lane that's played quite a lot into Braum, and this is Vitality saying, hey, we haven't tended too much towards things like that Trundle. We like the Tahm Kench, we like these kind of picks too. We don't want to give you the Braum to be very strong if we don't want to play the Trundle and the opposite factor. So I think the Vitality, taking that off the board, good ban away.
Yeah, so the Callistas also followed through. This does leave the Zac open, and it actually is going to get instantly locked in by Jankos right now. And I wonder if Vitality want to take away that Thresh that Chei's also had a lot of success on.
Possibly if they go here, they might take the Rakan or the likes of the Tahm Kench. That Thresh, of course, is very high priority, but when you look at the Xayah, you've always got to look towards the beloved in the lane. I think the interesting thing here from Vitality is so much focus on the bottom lane because they always desperately want to try and get Steelback and Vander out of a laning phase. They don't necessarily want to be stuck there against Nuclear and Chei, who have been back and forth on strength when it comes to their bottom lane. Sometimes consistently ahead in the lane, and sometimes, like last season's playoffs, not exactly having the best of times.
Yeah, consistency is definitely a rough word when you're talking about them, for sure. Now, Vitality do lock in that Thresh at the end of the day, right? So they are getting that takeaway, and they haven't really been doing the Lovers bot lane consistently. I wonder if this is something that they're more comfortable with.
Yeah, I have to look at that, but I want to look forward in this draft a little bit now. Pyra, you've got a Zac, maybe we pick up a Syndra for that lane presence, for ganking on top of it. Maybe the Orianna if you want to play defensive, that team fight, kind of denial style that we know that a lot of mid laners have been liking as well.
Could be the case. Tristana is already locked in for Nuclear here, so I wonder if they pick the mid laner now or if they do want to round out that bottom lane. You've got to think Vitality will start banning out much more Chase supports. Oh, just for a second there, I was holding my breath. Yeah, but as the timer ticks down, it's the Tahm Kench.
I like the Tahm Kench pick. It's kind of a pick that has ebbed and flowed into the meta. Against Thresh, it's particularly good. Of course, Tristana already very safe with the rocket jump as well. Now you get that extra added safety plus the map play that comes with the Tahm Kench.
Would you say the Tahm Kench is coming and going like a river?
Yeah. I would Pyra at that point. I didn't have anything to follow it. It's pretty good.
You don't have to say anything clever sometimes.
I was trying to think back to the release, but couldn't think of any of Tahm Kench's lines. This Maokai, of course, we've seen it in the jungle. We've seen it in the top lane. So provides that front line, the flex threat now that Vitality can come through. And we know that Cabochard, they always like to give him that opportunity to play carries in the top side. This now gives them the possible counter pick for that top lane.
Yeah, it's true. I kind of like it. I really hope he does take a carry because I feel like after hearing that, Cabochard is going to want to get some 1v1 kills up against Odo. We got to see what the top laners are, but the Syndra's banned away, so let's focus on mid lane for a sec.
Now, the thing is, I don't know whether Cabo actually would have heard that because he was on stage at this point, but we haven't been looking top lane for our band. Syndra band and now Jace band. Keep in mind, Febiven played the Jace last week. And did an absolutely immense job on the Jace play. Massive amount of damage came out from him. So obviously not feeling comfortable with leaving it up for Vitality to first pick it. But there are quite a few safe blind picks available. The Orianna, we've got the Talia, we've got the likes of a Corki still available, should they want to go that route.
There's a lot of mid lane bans, though. I wonder if H2K take another shot there, and it makes a lot of sense considering that Vitality's success has mostly been around Nukeduck, but instead they elect to remove the Renekton.
And at this point, if you want teamfight engage front lane, you can go the route of the Jarvan. If you want side lane control, you might look towards the Gnar here. You can see that Vitality already have pick and some sense of a late game already in focus for Vitality. So if they want to round out team fighting, that's where this Rumble would come in a little bit. It tells us that it's Maokai in the jungle. Rumble is going to provide them that magic damage threat that comes from that team fights with the Equalizer. Interested to see how they can face off against H2K, a team that previously has had rumblings about their team fight presence.
Oh, that is a good point. But still, it's always risky when you give away things like the Zac, and in the hands of Nuclear, that Tristana can be huge. I want to see what they end up locking in. It is the Gnar for the top side. So now we get to find out at least one side of the mid lane matchup.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Orianna here. Very safe blind pick. Plus, you look at the fact you've already got a Zac, you've got the Gnar for team fighting and for the side lane as well. The ability to control other lanes using that Tahm Kench, bringing other people in, means all you need is somebody that can sit mid lane for a while and just hold things together. And that's certainly something that Febiven has been very strong at doing for H2K.
All right, so it is in fact that Orianna. Now, do we see the Corki matching? What is Nukeduck going to go?
If they want earlier game, you can go for something like the
Lucian.
Talia, I was going to say, but Lucian as well, pushing lane. You can get a lot of damage down. This is a lane matchup that we did see quite a lot in the early part of the summer split, where you can utilize this Lucian's presence in the lane. Of course, we saw it in the telecom wars as well, the Lucian brought out by Faker. Lots and lots of emphasis on the early game here, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this actually pans out for Nukeduck. They were afforded this opportunity by having a magic damage threat from the top lane as well. I'm interested by the composition out of Vitality. I quite like it. You've got the scaling threat out of Steelback. You've got team fighting out of Djoko and Cabochard. Interesting setup, whereas I think H2K is a little bit more straightforward. You've got the Zac to start team fights. You've got Tahm Kench as well to bring them in. And then Gnar and Orianna, every time they're in a team fight, always have that big impact.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I feel like, though, for Vitality, you saw the serious faces of the players. It's crunch time for this team. They need to win out to try and make those playoffs. And they need some help for it, too. They're several games back from all the teams at the top of Group B. But it could all start here today. Yamato Cannon, taking over that coaching role on Team Vitality after his stint on Splice. He wants to make this team even better than they were before. Let's see if they can get it done. Otherwise, they will be, unfortunately, mired in 4th place. Mediocrity for another split.
Another split would be 4th for Vitality. As we head on to the Rift, you were talking about other things that would need to happen. For Vitality to make playoffs, they must win this game, and one of the other teams above them must lose every series until the end of the split. It has to be the same team consistently losing. Otherwise, that gap between them is just too big.
Yeah, the placement in the playoffs is all up for grabs right here in Group B. Vitality are hoping to squeeze their way into that pool. But it all starts right here, right now, for game number 1 between H2K and Vitality. As we load up onto the Rift, we'll see where the early action goes. You mentioned early game, oh so important. And we know Vitality have struggled with getting early game leads. So it seems encouraging that they've decided to draft towards that end.
They came into the split with a little bit more emphasis on the early game. Now, I wouldn't say their whole composition is early game focused from Vitality. And Maokai is quite hands-off when it comes to the early levels.
Branches, if you will.
Yeah, branches out into the late game. The Xayah can have the impact in the laning phase if the Thresh lands the hook. Those are the types of things for the early game that are a little bit more chance. It's that Lucian that can have the lane dominance early on, should have the lane dominance. And that's why we got to keep our eyes on that middle lane. Lucian should be able to push in early, punish the Orianna until you get pretty much out of the laning phase. That's when Orianna will really have that presence.
So I'm curious if, the Maokai doesn't have to be super active early on, but if Djoko elects to take a lot of visits to that mid lane, could that not help their chances? We saw what happened yesterday with Splice. Trashy was camping that mid lane, and I'll be damned if Senkux didn't pop off. And
that's why I want to kind of reiterate on the fact that Maokai can be hands-off. We've also seen people flash into mid lane at level 2 and WP.
That's true, yeah.
As you said, yesterday we saw a lot of Trashy and Senkux. I think when you're going up against the likes of a Zac, who can always be around to counter gank, it's always a difficult one, actually getting in for a successful gank. You can see Djoko having a little bit of trouble with the pull. Gets the blue buff and now will end up on his wolves. Had Steelback and Vander there to pull for him, but likewise, Nuclear and Chei were on their way to the lane in the bottom side, so no distinct advantage right now for that level 2 rush in the bottom lane.
Yeah, not as sick of a leash as we saw the other week with the Maokai, where he was already up at red buff when he got the blue.
Right.
That was pretty smooth, but all the same, he's able to get his good start off.
One thing to note is the blue, there was a ward on the red buff of Djoko in Vitality's jungle, and basically it was spotting to see whether Djoko was doing a route where he ends up on red and then looks towards the top lane early on to try and punish Odoamne. Now that's not what Djoko was doing, so we have to track the rest of his progress through the jungle. Jankos is basically able to just track him up through the map on similar camps and just end up on the top side roughly at the same time.
I mean, you got to think Odo won't be expecting that early gank up in the top side. You heard him say it earlier. He doesn't have his little doggy anymore, Cabochard, for that early pressure. Maybe Djoko says, oh yeah? Woof woof.
We'll see whether he... Woof woof. Wow.
He's got a cat skin. I know. I know. It's cats and dogs. I got them mixed up, Stress.
At least it's not raining at this point. Look, now Djoko goes into Jankos jungle, knows he was a little faster on that clear to get there. And Jankos actually gets pushed away from the blue. If that resets, that's a pretty sizable win for Djoko. Now, they both have their smites available, but Jankos has to back himself away. The important follow-on here is there is already a ward on the top side, which denies Djoko's ability to get into the lane. But look, Djoko's full health. He can just stand around here and deny Jankos for a little bit.
Yeah, that's
and
feels bad, man.
Look at this. The fact that Febiven is getting pushed in by this Lucian as expected means Jankos cannot contest his own blue at this point. It's a little risky for Djoko if he continues to stay, if, for instance, Odoamne leaves the lane. But look at where Jankos is going here, trying to make something happen on the top side of the map. It's one of the options that Jankos actually has available.
All right, he hops in, does get one pull, and now that means Odoamne is going to be able to throw the boomerang at him, but Cabochard doesn't take that much damage, and is going to free this red buff, or this blue buff up over to Djoko. So this is a good start for Vitality.
Oh, and look at the mid lane. Vander is heading towards there as well, but Djoko, look, Vitality are trying to keep early game pressure in the lane and push forward, try and take as much away from H2K as they can. I like this early game attempt out of Vitality, trying to really deny this Zac.
Djoko is not done. Oh, Jankos is going to have such a hard time in this jungle. They're even bringing Cabochard now. Vitality are zeroing in on trying to get these early advantages, and they don't need to do it through kills. 4 minutes in. It's not a whole lot of gold or anything, but that's going to stack up really quick when it's a jungler level difference starts coming in.
Yeah, you're denying Jankos that ability to get to the level 6, trying to deny him his early jungle path. And look, he's helped out by the fact that because Vander came out of the lane, there's a ward on Krugs, there's a ward on Raptors. Now, Chei, admittedly, is now looking for a mid lane play themselves. But Nukeduck, he's a little ahead on the CS. Djoko's going to cross over a ward, so this should kind of neutralize any play in that middle lane. But you can see this is already the kind of success around the middle lane, pushing it in, the Vitality we're expecting to have.
Yeah, and for Vitality, you know, we talked about it week in and week out. Nukeduck has been a consistent win condition for this team. And he is a very solid player, but we'll talk about that more in a minute because instant flash follow through. There's the root. Djoko gets a bramble smash out.
They've got it.
Cabochard, he flashed forward. He's looking for a barbecue, but it's going to be the tree that secures first blood. Djoko with the flash follow through.
I really like this early game out of Vitality. Difficult to deal with in the fact that H2K have picked a Zac that needs a little bit more time to get in. The Orianna was getting pushed in, and they focused on the top half of the map, getting now Odoamne. The first kill of the game goes over to Djoko. I like what they've been doing. It's a good usage of time out for Djoko, and it's really neutralizing the effect that Jankos can have on the game.
Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to go back to my point about Nukeduck because he has been so integral to the team, but he's clearly not the only win condition. And in this particular game, it's going to be hard for him, it seems, on his own to break through because he's up against Febiven, who's having, honestly, a really solid split, and he's on a safe mid laner.
On a safe mid lane. A lot of people call Febiven in the audience today, by the sounds of it. But as we look at that mid lane, talking about safe mid laners, that's one of the reasons why H2K has picked up this Orianna. But we got to focus on Djoko.
He doesn't have to be safe.
Yeah, he just killed him in the river at that point.
Oh no, Djoko.
Like, Febiven walks out of the lane, finds Djoko. I was looking for the minimap to try and see where, in fact, Nukeduck was. He was sat in the lane, just trying to farm out the back of it. And Febiven just ends up picking up an easy kill of all of the good work that Djoko had done. Remember, no flash was available from being in that top side, flashing forward. Febiven ends up just finding him and killing him.
Poor guy. He should have made like a tree and gotten the hell out of there. Nukeduck stepping forward, double tap onto Febiven, but he's got the shield to keep himself safe. And let's take a look at what Chei's doing. He went a little farther into the jungle while Djoko was away. Now he can get some sights on it. This might give Jankos some breathing room.
So this is what happened between Djoko and Febiven. Of course, Djoko on the retreat path from the jungle. He could see Febiven on this ward, but it wasn't really enough. He was trying to hide. Trees trying to hide in plain sight. And Febiven just knows that he can pick this up because, look, mid lane was pushed out towards Nukeduck. Nukeduck was just receiving the farm.
That was never going to work.
I mean, at that point, he didn't have a whole lot of options.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're a tree, you should hide in the jungle at least. Come on, man. All right, Cabochard. He doesn't know Jankos is here, but Jankos doesn't have level 6 just yet. Neither jungler does. Cabochard will have Equalizer available to him, and you can see H2K a little gun shy to try and pull off the dive. He does know that Zac's there. There's the ping.
Yeah, has that feeling that Zac is around. Equalizer is available as you were looking towards. Now, it's a Hex Drinker attempt, or potentially, out of Odo, so for that first sight, he doesn't have a massive amount of damage. Of course, he had to retreat back after being killed. Cabochard has himself that Seeker's Arm Guard already, so a little bit tougher to kill under the tower.
Yeah, and so he'll be working his way towards that Johnny's Hourglass. Of course, Cabochard's very comfortable on a champion like this Rumble. We've seen him play it time and again throughout the split. And Djoko,
He's able to get eyes on Jankos once again. Poor Jankos just keeps trying to grab farm wherever he can. Now he started off on the Raptor camp, but Djoko just keeps pushing it back. He can threaten this over and over again, and Jankos can't finish the job right now. This is kind of slowing down both junglers, honestly.
But you can see how a few extra levels in the lane matchups actually has turned this back around for H2K. They're now able to contend with the mid lane push a little more. They're able to push further with Odoamne. That gives Jankos the freedom with the vision control they already have through the top side river to be able to push forward. And now this game hasn't been much about the bottom lanes, but look at where Chei and Nuclear are heading. They're trying to cut off Nukeduck as they recognize Nukeduck has likely pushed forward, what with Febiven recalling out. They're going to find Nukeduck on the Raptors. Now Zach isn't here, but Tristana looking for it.
There's the Lantern though. Vander, he shows up right at the right time to get the save. Now Chei and Nuclear have to go home empty-handed. Now we only have a pair of kills apiece. As you said rightly, the action hadn't been in the bottom, it had been mostly up to the top, and we're right back into it again as Odoamne gets a big Gnar against the wall. Cabochard throws down the equalizer, but it doesn't look equal to me. That's 2-on-1. Odoamne with the kill.
This has been a good turnaround out of H2K, using now their slightly pushed up lanes, making sure they can get Jankos up there to get the kill onto Cabochard again. No flash from Cabochard from before, so as soon as that Gnar comes out from Odoamne, they know they can capitalize, stack the crowd control, and look to get in there for the kill. And there's no response, there's no second teleport user. Djoko wasn't close enough for Vitality to actually turn that back around, and H2K have found two good openings now to turn the game back around. Only a 500 gold lead for Vitality, but a lead is still a lead.
That's true, and a lot of it is off the credit of what they were able to get done early. Djoko derping aside, still had a lot of work in shutting down Jankos early on. Now we'll see how this fight unfolded, because of course Odoamne comes up with a big play.
Yeah, Odo with the double hop into the 9 to the wall from there. It's pretty much easy to finish off. Jankos doesn't quite get the ult he's looking for, but it
looks
didn't
like
matter
he
at the
taxied
end
a few minions on that
yeah.
one.
Didn't matter at the end.
Come
had
with
enough
me.
damage.
It's all right.
Probably not the most comfortable ride. I know we're looking into new technology like the Hyperloop and everything like that. Probably a lot more comfortable than Zach's Let's Bounce.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it is self-driving, so you don't need to worry about going in the right direction.
I hope so. It's a tube. The Hyperloop is a tube. If you're going anywhere else.
I was talking about Zach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they have in common. But yeah, no seatbelts on that one for sure. So, Cabochard, Odoamne, they'll continue to trade back and forth. And since the towers haven't been broken yet, my question to you, Stress, is this early attention that Vitality have given, this lead that they've started to build up, it's not huge. Is it enough for them? When does this window close?
I mean, at this point, it's only a 300 gold lead, so no, it's not enough at this point. The way they transition this, though, is going to be a little bit through moving the bottom lane around. Now, they don't necessarily want to move out of this lane because it gives H2K the ability to push the tower very quickly. Using the Tahm Kench, using the Tristana, you can actually cover a lot of ground quickly and push down a tower. So Steelback and Vander, they want to wait longer into this game before they can move out of the lane, get the Thresh picks working, get this working in combination with Nukeduck. But if Jankos is giving all of this attention around the mid lane, around the top lane, Vitality have to start moving their own pieces in accordance to try and combat it.
You can see that it might be a little bit harder in practice than it is in theory. Febiven, of course,
this
early start on those boots. He's able to move down quickly to this bottom side as they set up for the dive. Jankos jumping in. It's on to Steelback here. There's the flash. Lantern not even taken right now as Nuclear hops in. The Featherstorm is going to go out, but doesn't really matter. Febiven, he pulls him back in with the shockwave. They tunnel the aggro, and they get themselves one quick pick, and that should turn into Dragon for H2K.
Really nice setup on the bottom lane. You could see how Jankos was looking to get into the lane, and now Vitality will try and respond in the middle lane, but they don't actually have enough time. And H2K have all of vision on river here, so unless Vitality know H2K have committed to that Dragon, this is not the position they can continue to push in mid lane for Vitality. So we look back at that dive, H2K easily separate out Steelback and Vander, get the Lantern out early, it means Vander can't drag Steelback to further safety. And then from there, H2K know they can pick up the kills 4 versus 2.
Yeah, this is something the Analyst was talking about, how Vitality just don't have the same level of execution that H2K have enjoyed. It's partially why we see them at the standings they are, and of course the communication. It's just not been on the exact same level, so H2K can punish them for these types of mistakes.
Ping just went down on Steelback heading to the bottom side. What this tells H2K is there's no lane swap up to the top side, so they may look for another play like this. This is the play onto Steelback as Jankos came over. Ward goes on top of the Lantern to deny the Steelback. Observers making very clear that attempted denial. Didn't even get the Lantern through.
Yeah, that was sick, actually.
Yeah, really nice play. out there as H2K able to make sure they punish Vitality on the bottom side.
All right, 13 minutes into this game, and of course H2K have been back in the lead after they got that kill out onto Steelback. Let's see where they decide to go next. Jankos sitting inside the mid lane, and he just hops right over into his Raptor Pit. Vitality do have a couple of wards in that jungle, so they've spotted him out. But for the time being, H2K seem to be in a very comfortable place.
Yeah, they do. They're in a comfortable place. They know that Jankos has the impact to get onto the game. Their bottom lane is doing just fine at this point, up in CS, up with 1 kill. Orianna's in an acceptable position as well, 1 kill. Only slightly behind in farm, and this composition is starting to build to the point where they're going to come online.
Yeah, and those two initiators we just saw working their way through the Scuttle Crab. That's been a big part of it right now. The Tahm Kench can open things up as this game goes on. Chei, you know, we know him to be an incredible playmaker. We've seen him on the likes of Thresh. We've seen him on Tahm Kench and things like this, where he can set up these big plays, can be a big part of H2K winning these team fights. So Vitality, they really need to start getting something going right now if they want to hang on.
Once again, our observers highlighting just how much that Jankos is tracked through the jungle. And I like what you were talking about, the engage potential, you know, Jankos and his ability to get into the fights. But look, it's Djoko that's looking for a play on middle lane, looking for tower first blood as Febiven's here. May just shockwave the wave.
Clears it away.
Yep.
Easy peasy. Nukeduck takes a few more pot shots. It's almost down. Remember, we still don't have a single tower yet, so first tower blood is still up and available. But we might get more kills in a moment. Odoamne stepping through. He hops forward. Cabochard taking a lot of damage. There is the equalizer. He's trying to zoom his way back as Gnar comes out. In goes Jankos. Nukeduck there tagging. He dashes away. Flash follow through. Here comes Chei. Whoop. Although he does bring Nukeduck to the part, or Febiven, I should say, who gets eaten back up after the hook came through.
And this is where H2K are trying to utilize this bottom lane to their advantage. Bring the Tristana with the Tahm Kench, bring everybody mid lane, try and push back some of that emphasis that Vitality have put on the middle lane, because Vitality desperately trying to play around this Lucian, desperately trying around cracking the first tower. Now you can move the Lucian around, but that tower stands at like 200 health for now. And it means Vitality have to try and make yet another play onto it.
That was pretty sick, Djoko.
Yeah.
Gets that smite, wins that fight. All right, Nukeduck. I mean, it's really low in this mid tower right now, so everybody has been trying to push it down in the mid, in the bot, in the top, wherever they can find that advantage. But you can see Djoko, he's kind of getting what he put in earlier up against Jankos, who brought Odoamne to help him clear out that jungle.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's almost turnaround's fair play. Djoko won that smite fight, but Jankos actually was level 9 first. Jankos' impact in the fights, in the skirmishes early on, has actually given him the level advantage, and they're looking for it again. Here comes Odoamne. Half the Gnar bar is there.
He's got the ball. He's going to get pushed back for just a second. The Thresh box comes down. Shockwave pulls in 2, and the Cats come too late. Tower goes down. Nuclear comes up with a kill onto Vander, and Vitality are left empty-handed.
And what I like that H2K have done here is they make a small play to deny the wave push from Vitality at first, and then just repeat the play again. This time, catch with the ultimates, get the team fight started, get the kills, and get the tower. It's something that we've seen a lot of teams do step one, where you make a small play on, but you don't follow it up with this exchange. You don't go for the dive where you know you have the effective play here. Shockwave lands, good shockwave on 2. Jankos is able to get himself back out, and as you said, the Maokai ultimate isn't able to do too much more. H2K get out of that basically unscathed.
Yeah, in all honesty, it has been some pretty big plays here for H2K that have allowed them to keep this gold lead going. And crucially, the kills are going on to the carries. Febiven's got one of his own, as we talked about earlier. Nuclear, though, has those too. And you can see that last bit, you know, got him over the hump to grab himself the Infinity Edge and a Zeal to boot.
Yeah, Zeal on top of it for Nuclear. And, you know, this is H2K's win condition, is set up a fight like that around a tower. You go up to a tower, you look in with the Zac, you try and get the team fight, you get the Shockwave, you get the tower, you win the game. That's their game plan for the rest of this one. They can very actively do it with the Zac, with the Tahm Kench. On the other side, Vitality, trying to deny that is quite difficult. They're likely going to be looking to get that Maokai ultimate through the fights, but they also want to try and get time with Nukeduck in front of towers that don't have that defensive capability, where he can be out on a side lane trying to push through, but it's not the likes of a full 1-3-1 setup. There isn't always going to be time for Nukeduck to be in the side lane because you're fighting against a very quick-to-engage composition out of H2K.
That's true. As long as they're the ones who can set up the fights, it seems like they do have a setup for success. As the Scuttle Crab, or rather the Scuttle Crab's bigger brother, gets taken, Rift Herald, by H2K. For Vitality, you mentioned earlier in the pick and ban, they do have a relatively well-balanced team fight, but it seems like there will be somewhat of a window since Nukeduck is so fixated on the early game. Cabochard in the mid, he'll be the one that they're looking for, and of course Steelback as it goes later.
And Nukeduck is going to end up being some sense of wave clear from this as well. The culling is going to have to be utilized in a wave clear stance. And that means he's got to step close enough to a tower that if Jankos and Febiven are there, that's a very treacherous situation. Look, Rift Herald still survived after the tower push with quite a lot of health as well. Equalizer comes out now, but look, this Rift Herald has already done the damage. This tower is not going to heal up.
Yeah, that is a little unfortunate. And I can understand Yamato's frustration here. Remember, Vitality, they need to win out if they want to have any chance of making it into the playoffs. And at the moment, H2K leading the charge with a 2,000 gold lead and a tempo advantage, not looking too hot.
One area that Vitality could look to turn this back around is once this Righteous Glory is completed on Djoko, that's the item he's looking for. Try and find somebody like Febiven if they're on their own. Now, those errors don't happen very often. We've seen it happen a handful of times with Febiven, but if you can get the likes of a Maokai, a Lucian, to get that initial pick, maybe bring the Thresh along as well, try and get that pick, that's where Vitality can open the game back up. But H2K against teams that typically are below them on the standings look very clean when making plays like this. A little bit on a different page. Nuclear was anticipating that Nukeduck would go up the river, I think.
Yeah, juked. Yeah, so Nukeduck is able to get out scot-free. That time,
Jukeduck.
Yeah, wow. I can't believe I didn't think of that one.
I'm sure we were saying that in 2013.
Probably. That was a long time ago, Stress. I wasn't even around back then. But Nuclear back down on the bottom side, pushing up against Nukeduck, and he has a lot of damage though. Nukeduck's got to be careful, and of course there's that Tahm Kench protection there, that frustrating levels of death denial that he can always bring, and Chei, no stranger to it.
No. Chei, I think that was one of his real big standout moments here in Europe. Ooh, Djoko gets dragged over the wall.
He wants to go all in. Jankos does not get locked up. And the bounce, that's a long hook, but it's not going to be followed.
That was one of the opportunities we were talking about, where if they can find H2K out on their own, it actually ended up being beneficial that Djoko got dragged so far away. The problem is, H2K use a lot to back out, because they know Odoamne is getting the top tower. They know there is the attempt on the bottom tower between Nuclear and Nukeduck.
And Nukeduck, he gets popped back by the buster shot of Nuclear, but of course, Chei once again there to keep him alive. And the top lane keeps pushing in favor of H2K right now because Cabochard just can't match the pressure that Odoamne is dishing.
And this means some of the big ultimates now not available. Djoko's ultimate, Nukeduck's ultimate not available for any kind of skirmish. It gives H2K the freedom to just go to the dragon now. No real impact here can come from Vitality because their big teamfight ultimates that they're going to rely on can't be utilized here. It's a Mountain Drake going in favor of H2K. Only the first one of the game at 21 minutes in. You can see how little focus H2K have had on this because they've been winning out elsewhere on the map.
But now that they have it, it's going to make their demolition on these towers even more deadly. You have a Tristana already that is a veritable wrecking ball against towers. Now you have the Mountain Drake. You're going to do a little bit extra damage to those objectives as well. So it's going to be harder and harder for Vitality to stop themselves from losing ground. And there is late game potential for this team, of course. The Xayah is going to be pretty instrumental in making it happen. And credit to Nukeduck. He does keep this side wave pressure up. Vitality aren't folding at the moment. And it's something we've criticized them in the past for slowly giving ground, not taking action. And now they're making plays. They're not all working, but they are doing them.
Especially Vitality of old, where they kind of would run out of things to do. I think this Vitality lineup has had less of that problem. They've been attempting to make plays. Some of that I think you can attribute to the fact they were playing Tahm, Kench, or Vander a whole bunch. Thresh is a little more difficult to have that kind of impact because it's, can I flay somebody or can I hook somebody? If no, probably can't make too many plays without trying to just get that vision first. Whereas Tahm Kench, you can be like, see someone in the side lane, go, go, go.
Yeah, that is fair. And you could definitely have much more reliable plays with the Tahm Kench than you can with the Thresh. But remember, it is Vander piloting him. This is a guy with a lot of LCS experience. We used to call him Vander Life. Back when, he was really making these epically massive plays, back in the Roccat days.
And that's why it's not a knock on Vander at all. It's just that the champion style, Thresh from ahead, super great. You just hook everybody inside, you just kill everybody, take out anything that moves. Thresh from behind, a whole different story. You've got to really stretch to make plays. It's about trying to punish any small mistake out from their opponents, like if they can catch Febiven or Jankos out once again, but even then, you've got to get through the Zac passive. You've got to try and fight against the Shockwave, the inevitable Gnar teleport that'll come in.
Yeah, and I think the thing that really sucks about it is there is a Tahm Kench on the enemy team, so you might be able to hit all those hooks, And he's just like, nope.
Technically, they may still be a miss then, right? if you don't get the kill, but that wouldn't be on Vander at that point.
That's like the worst thing when you lock in Thresh and your opponent's like, haha, Tahm Kench.
It's even worse when you lock in Ashe.
Or like
the enemy,
Morgana.
the enemy support is just like Tahm Kench. Great. Okay. Deny everything.
Doesn't work for me. Whenever I play Tahm Kench, I just end up dying a lot.
That's fair.
Probably says something about me more than the champion, though.
Yeah, considering your main champion is Singed.
Hey, why do you keep telling people that?
You keep telling people that.
No, I say he's my favorite.
Oh, okay.
There's a difference. All right. But anyways, look what H2K have been able to do, right? Like, they keep the vision clear.
Ooh.
They're able to make moves together as a team here.
They're trying to punish Odoamne here. He does have his flash. He's going to be mini Gnar and can get out of there. But look, H2K commit onto the Baron immediately because, look, Nukeduck, no teleport available. This is Vitality committing into the bottom lane when they didn't have full vision control on the top side. They hardly had any. TP comes through. Vitality, they're going to try and fight this one.
Oh, Djoko goes to burn his flash, and he can't get over the wall.
Djoko
is going to be taken down. Smited away, Djoko nearly bought it there. However, Jankos, he gives his life to try and keep them out of that Baron pit, so that is one Baron buff removed. But the rest of H2K will make it out.
Oh, I didn't see who actually tagged the blast cone there, but that looked to have been touch and go. Djoko clearly saw the play in his eyes. He was like, Jankos is out of the pit. I can get in there. I can steal it down.
He flashed a little bit too far ahead to actually make the insta-play, but man, that would have been a highlight. Unfortunately, Vitality just a little slow on the jump, and they lose out on the big purple worm.
And it's not necessarily just slow on the jump. They actually just committed bot side. They thought, okay, if we take Cabochard down, he's got the TP, he can come back up to the top side, we can actually get this. But I'd love to see what vision control they had before the Baron play actually started, because as it was in progress, H2K had full control, and there was no way Vitality had a proper read on exactly how far it's going. But it's a nice play out of H2K to just go directly to the Baron, know they can get it. Vitality is stuck waiting around in bushes topside trying to kill Odoamne, who basically knows everybody's still there. So, look at the vision. This is what Vitality can see. Febiven throws out a shockwave to deny Djoko and Vander's pathway to the top side. Really well, trying to just deny everything. Then Jankos jumps out. 800 health in the Baron. Djoko, ooh.
He gets Buster shot away from
Buster shot back. That was beautiful by Nuclear.
Give some serious props to him, man.
Yeah,
Nuclear
that's actually
has been very clutch in a lot of situations.
Very clutch. I thought it was the blast cone. He wasn't quite lined up. Well, Djoko's getting caught out again.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think this is not going to end well for him. That is 4-on-1, and Nuclear just says, I'll take it. Yeah, give it to me.
Into the tower, and unfortunately, H2K now is starting to wind up into this passage of the game where towers are going to fall very quickly in their favor. You got the Tristana, you got the Baron buff, you got the Orianna here in the lane, just able to push with that Mountain Drake they already took. And now Jankos basically just blocks in the middle. He's able to just deny Vitality any shortcut towards their own base. And H2K, they're going to look to push down an inhibitor tower already.
Yeah, and Nuclear is nearly at that 3-item Tristana spike where he just becomes an absolute monster. So there is really not a whole lot Vitality can do other than just a master play flank. And Cabochard's got no TP. He's obviously already waiting around here, but H2K are playing on 2 lanes. The siege is proving very successful, and it seems like Vitality's dreams are starting to go down the drain.
A lot of this game turned back around from that 7-minute-ish mark where H2K put down the vision, they pushed the mid lane, pushed the top lane out, got the jungle control with vision, and Jankos suddenly found his element. The whole early game, the first few minutes of this game, was all Vitality trying to punish Jankos. But it wasn't enough. H2K, as a unit, turned back around, are able to put the game back in their favor, and now we're 20 minutes later, they're in full control.
Yeah, looking to close this one out right now as the tower falls and the shockwave takes down Nukeduck, although it ends up being a finishing blow courtesy of Nuclear, and he just keeps on the front line. The rest of H2K not far behind. A few Baron-empowered minions will be enough for them to plow through this tower, to break into the base, and Vitality, there is no counterplay.
Yeah, this is what the team composition is made to do. You just fight just underneath the enemy tower. You've got enough survivability and great team fighting to be able to take it to Vitality, and you just break every structure that is behind them. Very swift, meticulous composition comes out of H2K, and they execute it beautifully.
This is the masterful execution, as you said. So there was the start of it all. And a big front line in that Gnar.
Yeah, shockwave comes through. Nukeduck is able to flash it, but Nuclear already has that auto attack in traveling. And Djoko kind of zoned out of the fight, can't quite get in, had used the ultimate, was trying to basically get anything he could, but at that point, doesn't really have much more to offer.
I mean, wasn't able to do a whole lot. And you can see why it was so critical for Vitality to try and shut down Jankos early because he's been a big part of that front line, but so is Odoamne now, so is Chei, and there's just no chance that Vitality have been able to get into those backline situations to find the flanks they need. And you know, it was critical that they played the early game out, but we know that Vitality, they just generally don't get a whole lot of these early leads. Not for lack of trying, but against a team like H2K, just better execution, just crisper play. It's hard to do.
It is. It's very hard to do, but H2K themselves on this execution want to go again.
Nice dodge.
I was having a conversation with Senkux last week when we were on the Analyst desk, talking about how strong Orianna is as a pick, and you can see Febiven using it beautifully. Good offensively, tied with a Zac, great defensively, especially against people that are trying to engage. Like, this ball creates so much pressure. Oh, Steelback forced to ult.
Yeah, it also forces that to happen every now and again, and it's such a low cooldown for the Shockwave as well. I mean, that's why Orianna's been such a staple for such a long time in League of Legends.
And such a staple blind pick as well. There are almost no matchups that completely deny Orianna. Lucian is a tough one, don't get me wrong, but you get into the game. Later on when you team fight like this.
They're going to try it. Although Odoamne, he gets melted through. This might be the opportunity here as Chei was standing on top of the equalizer. Didn't take too much damage, but Jankos a little too low to get back into it. And H2K don't push their luck.
Yeah, just split second between Odoamne actually transforming there, but he was caught chain CC'd and wasn't able to get his ultimate through. So nice catch by Vitality. That's what they've been looking to do for the last 20 minutes of this game, but unfortunately, it's not a reliable basis, and that's what makes it difficult to pull off here. Vitality looking for any area that they can while they're slowly losing one Nexus tower.
Yeah, we talked about the Miracle fight. I mean, there's always an opportunity, right? And Steelback, you know, we've been talking about Nuclear constantly this game, but he's building up his items as well. Xayah in the late game is a monstrous team fighter. There is always a chance if H2K, they mess up their execution, lose more than just Odoamne next time, but it will take quite a lot for that to happen.
Yeah, it will take quite a lot for that. Steelback, there's so much is going to rely on him getting past this third item, getting even further into the game, so that means the rest of his team for now have to kind of stem the bleeding. They'll have to use as much of their wave clear as possible out of the culling and all that, but look, it's not available right now, so every time Nukeduck steps forward to try and clear it with a piercing light and then a combination of auto attacks, it just doesn't really have that impact, because then Febiven's just going to Q Shockwave him, like, every single time.
Yeah, that's already back off cooldown? Yeah, Febiven's pretty beastly right now. I mean, we're talking a lot about Nuclear, Febiven's been big, but H2K have executed this composition masterfully, considering the tough situation they were put in early on with Jankos, and just plowing through the tower now. Jankos looking for Cabochard. He gets them pulled on in. Cabo might go golden, but right about now, he is going to be falling down. A big shockwave pulls in for Jankos, coming in with no fear and no health bar, but he is still able to stay alive, and they have pushed Vitality all the way back to the fountain. One shut down, that will not be enough. A double kill from Febiven. Minions streaming into the base. A triple kill from Febiven. And in game number one, H2K show Vitality who is boss, taking the series up 1-0.
Odoamne practically walked right through that Maokai ultimate. Nexus ends up falling, and H2K with a very clear game plan come through. Execute well. Vitality just couldn't contend in those skirmishes, in the fights underneath the tower. It's exactly what H2K were looking for.
Yeah, and I feel like Vitality, they had their game plan, and in the early game, they did make it work for them. But like it happens in so many Vitality games, they just ran out of gas.
Yeah, especially when Nuclear on the other side had 5 kills, Febiven had 4 kills. Like, the damage threats on the side of H2K just really punished Vitality in this period of the game where the Lucian wasn't having the massive amount of success. They were still waiting for the Xayah, and the team fights were kind of crumbling before Cabochard could actually get into the game. So I can see what Vitality were looking for with the composition. I think it's possible to make it work, but look, when H2K are that clean on their comp, I think it's such a tight window that you've actually got to try and make the play.
Yeah, I wonder what Vitality needs to do for the next game. Composition-wise, obviously, we know keeping it simple is going to help, but should they tunnel on that early game in every role, or should they maybe go more towards the scaling side of things?
No, I think you should probably keep at least one scaling component, and that always seemingly looks better on Steelback, but I don't think there are any massive issues with that pacing on it, just H2K executing very well.
Well, they certainly executed all the way to 1-0 on the series. Now, H2K had full control in that game one. Let's head over to the analyst desk to break it all down.
Thank you very much, Brian. I think it's pretty safe to say full control. There were a few moments in the early game that weren't quite as H2K favored, but after that, it did feel like 100% the classic, well, when H2K is informed, the classic H2K snowball coming in and closing up. What did you think was the biggest factor looking at that early game? Because it was relatively calm in terms of early action for the most part.
I think that Jankos was the biggest thing, because what we saw from Djoko was we saw a few good early plays. He put a lot of pressure down onto Jankos. I think he took advantage of the recent nerfs that did happen to Zach, where his clear is a little slower, he takes a little bit more damage in the jungle, and I thought that was a good awareness, but he didn't really do anything else, whereas Jankos, he was always looking for opportunities. He wanted to set up a bunch of dives around the map, and I think a lot of them were extremely successful.
Yeah, it definitely was the case, and I think it's surprising because Djoko had a successful play where they ganked the Gnar, and it felt like it worked out for them, but wasn't able to transition it to anything else. However, Jankos, just kind of the crux of so many of these aggressive tower dive plays, and when we look at this one in particular, and this specific moment, I thought we might get the whole play as well, but you can see that ward being laid down, on top of this being a smart map play, just a beautiful outplay as well.
Yeah, and you can see on your mini-map, like the control wards were set up in the river, the deep vision was invested already from the bottom lane because they had the push. Everything was set up beautifully, and everything was well executed. There was no answer because the TP and flash had already been used topside. And this is just a clear demonstration of H2K's understanding of macro and how to play around the map. They see an opportunity in the bottom lane, they go for it, they know that it's not risky, and that's where their snowball starts. And they did this time and time again. They got a good gank up onto the Rumble in top lane. Both Jankos and Odo executed very nicely. And they did the same sort of dive in the mid too.
And that's the thing, is I feel like we didn't see those repeat ganks from Djoko, but we did see them from Jankos. And it's easy to forget all the ganks that didn't work out in the favor of H2K in terms of Jankos leaping in, throwing down some damage, but not able to get a summoner or any tangible advantage. He lived top lane in a lot of the early game, and when he does get that final gank to get his lane ahead, he knows he can leave and he starts going other places. And I feel like this game, because the laning phase felt so even between the individual players, was pretty much all about Jankos.
Yep, it really was. And then when they moved towards the Baron, that's really where they closed things out. I was a little worried when they did start off the Baron.
I'm hoping we get the opportunity to talk to Prolly at some point and ask him what stage he was at. Obviously, the start here is fantastic. H2K, this is a good setup. It's confident. They're pressing their advantages. You mentioned earlier about how good their vision was.
But then jumping out of the Baron pit when it has 1,000 HP, like Febiven even had to flash into the pit, QW to burst it down, and Jankos gives up his life. And you could see afterwards when the team was talking to their coach, I could just see Jankos being like, look, listen, coach, listen, it's not what it looked like, okay? I knew the team had it. I was going to
hit the Maokai. I was going to hit the Maokai, then we're not going to risk the 50-50. I swear I had it, whatever it was.
It was a little risky, but fortunately, because of the full vision control that H2K had in the pit, Vitality, they couldn't get in. They didn't know how close they were to stealing away.
And now we present to you the EU LCS belt cam, starting Prolly and Jankos. Not the case this time around. And now moving forward to next game, this feels like a dominant form of H2K. If you're on the side of Vitality, what do you do to adjust? I feel like we've put a ton of pressure on Djoko, but is it all just on Djoko?
I don't know, because I think that the Lucian pick was a little bit odd as well. I think that if you're going to pick something that's relying on getting an early snowball and being pretty dominant, your Orianna shouldn't be the one that's making all these map movements and being able to roam around to set up these dives, getting an early kill onto the Maokai in the river. Like, these sort of things shouldn't be allowed if your goal is to play an early aggressive mid laner. So I think that while Nukeduck played fine, I wanted to see a little bit more from him. And also, like, we didn't actually get to see any sort of opportunity of team fighting or team play. And when it's such a heavy meta about forcing fights, that should be an avenue that Vitality look to take advantage of if they want to shut down a team like H2K.
And I'm curious, in a meta where there are so many tank junglers who aren't known for crazy aggressive early games, obviously Zach and Maokai can force some successful ganks, is it appropriate to play such a dominant early laner? We've seen so many control mages coming out in the mid lane. Like, is that just the better route for mid laners right now?
Ooh, I think it depends, right? Because what we have been seeing is sometimes you'll pick something like a Syndra, which can set you up nicely so that you can be super active in the early game. But I think that I don't know. I honestly think that it's difficult to assess what the best thing is because it very much depends on the composition. Like we saw Faker bring out the Lucian. He made it work perfectly fine in the composition that he had. But in this situation, I felt like that the goals of the Lucian didn't align with what the team composition wanted to do. I felt like they had really good team fighting. And the idea was to get an early snowball and force a few mid-game fights. But because they didn't get that early lead, they weren't able to transition into fights, and Jankos had way more pressure. Orianna's,
definitely turned against them. Well, H2K are looking to close out the series when they step on stage for Game 2 right after this. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Vitality are hoping to squeeze their way into that pool. But it all starts right here, right now for game number 1 between H2K and Vitality. It's on to Steelback here. There's the flash. Lantern not even taken right now as Nuclear hops in. The Featherstorm is going to go out, but doesn't really matter. Febiven, he pulls him back in at the ball. He's going to get pushed back for just a second. The Thresh box comes down. Shockwave pulls in 2, and the Cats come too late. Tower goes down. Nuclear comes up with a kill.
I like how you just all go mid and just AD him.
He comes through. Vitality, they're going to try and fight this one.
Going. Oh, Djoko goes to burn his flash, and he can't get over the wall.
Djoko,
he's got to take it down. Smart away, Djoko nearly bought it there. However, Jankos, he gives his life. Minions streaming into the base. A triple kill for Febiven. And in game number 1, H2K show Vitality who is boss, taking the series up 1-0.